Love and marriage go together like a horse and carriage, or so we are told in the old Frank Sinatra song. There are other things that also go together, like Good Friday and Easter Sunday. If there was no Easter Sunday, then Friday would not be good, because all we are left with is Jesus being killed by the Romans. Certainly no good news in that. But let me tell you a story. Now, this is a story I would love to be true, but it probably isn't, unless, of course, you know otherwise. During World War II, a general and his lieutenant were travelling from their base to a base in another town. They were forced to travel with civilians aboard a passenger train. They sat in a compartment with two others, a very attractive young woman and her grandmother, and for most of the trip they chatted happily. Then the train entered a long, dark tunnel. Once inside the tunnel, the passengers heard two distinctive sounds. The first was a smooch of a kiss, and the other the sound of a hard slap. There were four people in the compartment with four different perspectives on what had just happened. The young woman is thinking to herself how glad she is that the young lieutenant has had the courage to kiss her, but she's somewhat disappointed that her grandmother slapped him for doing it. The general is thinking to himself how proud he is of his young lieutenant for being so enterprising to find this opportunity to kiss this attractive young lady, but is flabbergasted that she slapped him instead of the young lieutenant. Then there was the grandmother. She is also flabbergasted to think that the young lieutenant had the nerve to kiss her granddaughter, but she's proud of her granddaughter for slapping him for doing it. And then there's the young lieutenant who is trying to hold back the laughter, for he had found the perfect opportunity to kiss an attractive young woman and slap his superior officer all at the same time. One event, yet four very different reactions to it. As we read the Gospels, we read of the one event of the resurrection of Jesus from the dead, and yet we observe a number of different reactions to it, largely bewilderment and confusion. And over the next few minutes, I would like to focus on one man's reaction to the resurrection. His name was Thomas. Thomas was a disciple of Jesus. His response was one of unbelief, for which he received the unwelcome nickname, Doubting Thomas. We read that when Jesus first appeared to his disciples, Thomas was absent. What an occasion to be taking your dog out for a walk, or buying the Jerusalem Herald, or a lottery ticket, or whatever else he was doing. Shortly afterwards, he came back and was confronted with the news. Just try to imagine the scene for a moment. I imagine the conversation went a little bit like this. Hi, Thomas, where have you been? We've had the most incredible time. You never guess what? We've had a visit from Jesus. He's alive. He came to show us his wounds, his hands, his feet, his side. He's alive, Thomas. And Thomas then reacts with just a touch of cynicism. Do I look stupid? To which Peter responds, well, since you're asking. Thomas says, I saw what happened on Friday as well as you. I saw what they did to the Lord. I saw those nails and that spear pierce him. Those Roman soldiers, the heartless bunch of no good. I saw what they did. And unless I see the nail marks and put my hand into his side, I will not believe it. I wonder if we ever see ourselves in Thomas. I wonder if our reaction would have been any different to his. Thomas wanted proof. His motto was, seeing is believing. He wasn't going to be taken in by this far-fetched story of Jesus rising from the dead. Unless I see, I am not going to believe. I think we can be a little hard on Thomas on occasions, the man who has gone down in history as someone who excelled in doubting. But I'm glad that Thomas wasn't around when Jesus made his first appearance to the other disciples. I'm also glad he said what he did, because I probably would have said the same things if I'd been wearing his shoes. Thomas's reaction was, unless I see, I will not believe. Well, a week later, he was given the opportunity to see when Jesus appeared to him. Jesus commanded him to examine his hands and his side. We're not told whether Thomas did that or not. But what he did was cry out, "My Lord and my God." Jesus gently rebuked him for needing to see before he believed. Jesus said, "Because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet believed." Thomas didn't cover himself in glory that day, but there are a couple of things I really do like about Thomas. Thomas wasn't gullible or naive. He wasn't prepared to believe something that he thought was far too incredible just because the others did. He was his own man. He wasn't prepared to throw his brains away. I often say to people I meet, you don't need to throw your brains away to become a Christian. I also encourage people to look at the facts for themselves, read the Gospels, join an Alpha course, take time to get answers for themselves. For me, one of the most convincing facts that Jesus rose from the dead is that all the disciples were prepared to die for their belief in the resurrection of Jesus. They boldly claimed that they were eyewitnesses of Jesus risen from the dead. And this was a message that caused many of their deaths. People are sometimes prepared to die for some ideology or religion or political stance that they believe to be true. History is littered with such people. But no one would ever be prepared to die for something they knew to be a lie. The disciples claimed they were eyewitnesses of the resurrection. Now, Thomas wasn't naive and he wasn't gullible. And the other thing I like about him is his willingness to change his mind when the evidence was presented to him. He wasn't entrenched in his views. I'm not sure whether we're being very fair to Thomas by giving him the name Doubting Thomas, especially in that we might see ourselves in him. Yes, we do. I see myself in him. I'm sure that all of us are a mixture of faith and doubt. There are different types of doubters. Firstly, there are those who have chosen to dismiss the Christian faith without even looking at the evidence. They made up their minds and no amount of evidence would sway them otherwise. They're unwilling to consider another option. My mind is made up. Don't confuse me with the facts. There's a word for that, you know. The word is prejudice. Then there are other people with open minds, people who really want to believe. But maybe doubts have crept in over the years and circumstances of life have caused them to question God's part in their lives. But they are willing to explore the claims of Christianity and even willing to change their minds. It was C.S. Lewis, the author of the Tales of Narnia, a brilliant scholar, who once said that Christianity is a statement which, if false, is of no importance, and if true, is of infinite importance. The one thing that it cannot be is moderately important. Big question. Which are we? Are we open-minded or are we closed-minded? Thomas's motto was, "Seeing is believing," which is often the way that people approach God. If God will show himself to me, if he will reveal his existence, if he will perform a miracle, if he will give me a sign, if, then I will believe. But it might surprise you, God's way is actually the other way around. It's not seeing is believing, but believing is seeing. That is, if we choose to open our hearts and minds to him, then we will be given God's grace to see. There's a lovely verse hidden away in the Psalms which says, "Taste and see that the Lord is good." Or if you want a modern translation, I imagine it would be, "The proof of the pudding is in the eating." If you want to explore the Christian faith but don't really know where to start, do get in touch. God bless. Have a great week.